Alphabet in the hot seat, the Justice Department taking aim at Google's search business, arguing that the company's search deals with browser makers like Mozilla and Apple illegally extended Google's monopoly. Let's bring in Alexis Keenan, who's been tracking the closing arguments. This is one that's dragged on for several weeks now. The expectation here is that this could really set a precedent for other big tech companies as well. What have we heard so far in these arguments?
Right. So this case is closely watched. It's going to have far-reaching impacts, perhaps for the tech industry, the broader industry, the wireless industry, because this is a huge case. This is probably the biggest case that the DOJ has brought against a big tech player since the Microsoft case. And now, of course, we have a stack of them, right, against all of our big tech companies right now. But this is just the trial phase right now. That's what's going on. And closing arguments are set to wrap today in this antitrust case that was actually bought by the Trump administration. Maybe it will be finished under a Trump administration. Maybe it'll be finished under a Biden administration or other. But this is just kind of a first step. And what's going to happen once these closing arguments conclude is the judge is going to make a decision. This is not a jury case. And he has not so far tipped his hand, Judge Mehta, at the D.C. District Court. He's not really shown which way he's going to go here, but during the closing arguments, he gets the opportunity to ask both attorneys from both sides questions, and he has said things like, well, don't competitors bear some of the burden for competing in the search market? But on the other hand, he's also said, well, it seems very unlikely, if not impossible, that competitors could enter this market. So at the heart of the DOJ's claim here is that Google used illegal contracts. They had these layerings of contracts with companies like predominantly Apple, Verizon, Samsung, Mozilla. So you're talking about smartphone manufacturers, you're talking about browsers, wireless carriers, all mixed up in these contracts so that Google can get default placement of Google search on those devices. And the argument by the government here is that then from there flows all of this lockup of the markets for search in general, just a general search engine, as well as search advertising. Now take a look at that. That is the $26.2 billion, $0.3 billion that was revealed during this trial, that in 2021, that's the figure we have, that Google was paying across the board to these companies for this default placement. Now, the lion's share of that goes to Apple. Apple reportedly in 2022 getting $20 billion of that 26 or so billion dollars if you kind of go between 2020 and 2021 and 22 there. Then if you go back to 21, Apple had received $18 billion in those contracts. Go back to 2014, just $1 billion. So you can see how important these contracts, this flow of revenue is for not just Google, but for Apple and these other players. So a lot to be learned here once we see the judge's decision. That could come in weeks. That could come in months. We just don't know. But it is a first step. This is the trial phase. We should expect appeals.
Interesting. Alexis, thanks so much for breaking this down for us.